Emma Lenny Beyo Nile Loko. Esiku Dede Asiko yi. Hello everyone, it's Adirunke again. I hope your day is going well. Today I'll be translating this AfroLatinidad Òrìṣà song as I promised in my most recent one of this kind. And I will sing it briefly. I know that just by seeing the title, a lot of people would know the song already, but I will sing it. I tried to find a rendition, but yeah, YouTube's copyright structure is not playing these days, so I didn't want to proceed. So as I explained in my most recent video, this song is addressing a feminine Ọbàtálá. The Ọbàtálá that is deified, that is currently being honored, let me put it that way, was the King Ọbàtálá of Ife. And you find that there's a lot more enthusiasm about honoring this energy in Ife and its environs because that deity was a king there. Not every monarch or not every strong figure in history is as deified as some others. I don't know what the criteria is, but I find that not Oduduwa, for instance, is not as deified. Is honored, but as far as active honoring, active reverencing, I find that Ọbàtálá is a little bit more on that scale. I don't think this is a complete list or an absolutely correct record, but I found this Wikipedia article that lists the rulers of Ife. So I don't know who published this particular. Okay, well, they did list their research papers. So this is Oduduwa. I find that a lot of people confuse Ọbàtálá's story and Oduduwa's story. The documentation was not great, so of course there will be confusion. And this is the current Oni. If you trace back, I think they were able to trace this, that Ọbàtálá was the king at the time and Oduduwa took over from Ọbàtálá, and then Ọbàtálá seized power again. So, and then there's Ogun. And I was discussing this with somebody, when I was talking about the possibility of a feminine Ọbàtálá existing. They were mentioning at some point that there's something in Ogundameji that references that feminine Ọbàtálá, but they were not able to. I think maybe the first 2 or 3 stanzas of any Odu are known. A Babalawo that learns more stanzas or more verses, more SFA, would be going above and beyond at that point. The first 3 would be more than sufficient for most Babalawos to work with as far as interpreting what Ifa is communicating. So they were saying there are like 401 Irumale alone. Like, how many of those 401 can I mention? And I was like, if I can mention 100, I would be so proud of myself. If I can list 100, I cannot list 150 of those Irumale, So we don't know everything. Yoruba spirituality, if one is really going to enjoy it, one has to come at it with a sense of, should I say, humility, just openness to some degree. I find that once some people learn 2 or 3 things, they let it get to their head and they consider themselves authorities. It's like, this is something that you were told to. Nobody really knows the fact. People like to think of them as just 7, like 7 Yoruba deities. There are 400 plus 1. It's not even 401. He corrected me. He said, that it's not 401, that it's 400 plus 1. That's the difference between the way we speak Yoruba now and the way they spoke Yoruba then. So there are even more Òrìṣà. Irumale would be people who were integral figures in the establishment of what we now know as the Yoruba culture, or the way that we live our lives now in accordance with the culture, at least to some degree. I did a bit of research to try to learn more, because Iyalawa is the first line of this song. You will see as I interpret, but that Iya, of course, I've never heard anybody call the masculine Ọbàtálá Iya. It's the fusion of that feminine Ọbàtálá that seems to be somewhat obscure to most people now, and the prominent Ọbàtálá of Ife. It's the conjunction of their energies that makes people think maybe Ọbàtálá is androgynous, or is that confusion. There are two separate people. King Ọbàtálá of Ife did not say anything about androgyny. He was not androgynous in any way. He was just like a normal man. He had a wife, he had children. Of course, we all know Yemo, but that wasn't his only wife. That was his favorite wife. Same as Shogo. Shogo didn't have one wife. He had leg issues, so he had one functioning leg, and there are certain things that you can say here and there about that King Ọbàtálá, but you can't say androgyny because there's nothing like that. The source of the confusion is the fact that there's not just one Ọbàtálá. Ọbàtálá was not the name that this king was given at birth. That's another thing that we discussed. When a person, just like you and I, is going to be deified, they are given a different name, a descriptive name, something that would either describe their nature or something that they promoted or something that they were involved in. Ṣàngó was not the name that Kábíyèsí Ṣàngó was given at birth. Ọ̀ṣun was not the Erinle was not the name that the deity that we refer to as Erinle was given at birth. Erinle, elephant of the land. Nobody in the Yoruba culture would name their child that. It is the child that would now grow up to become Erinle. In the course of learning more about this song, it opened my eyes to a lot of things. Back to what I was saying about popularity and what makes some people in history more prominent than others. Typically, at least 70% of them easily were royal in some way, had monarchical ties in some way. Ṣàngó, Ọbàtálá, Ọya was his wife, Queen. Even Ọ̀ṣun had monarchical ties. Yemoja as well, Ṣàngó's mother, a queen herself. We call her Jenle Jelodo Ayaba Okere. So she was the wife to King Okere. We don't know if it was Okere that birthed the king that we now refer to as Ṣàngó today. Who are the other 7? Ọ̀rúnmìlà. Well, Ọ̀rúnmìlà developed the divination system to a significant degree, so of course it will be remembered. Ògún also had monarchical ties as well. I don't know if the Ògún deity that we honor today, the deified Ògún, is this Ògún, well, who was a great warrior. Yeah, so my guess is yes, indeed, it's most likely this Ògún that we honor in this day and age. A great warrior and hunter who attempted to seize power but was ousted by Ọbalùfọ̀n. Ògbógbó Dìrìn. Okay, that would make sense. Erin, Iron. We have more than one Ọbalùfọ̀n. The person that I spoke with really humbled me to a significant degree, because he mentioned that what we claim to know is much less than what we really don't know. Apart from the fact that there's a possibility, there are indicators here and there that indeed there was a feminine Ọbàtálá who had a different name at birth but became Ọbàtálá with the way that she lived her life as well, was probably albino, and little is known about her, and she's not as honored. Iyamokpo and Ọ̀ṣun were friends, for instance. There are more people who honor Ọ̀ṣun today than there are people who honor Iyamokpo. There's Okebado. There's, apart from just Òrìṣà O, that is somewhat used in general to honor deities of hills and mountains, there are even specifics. There's a whole lot that we don't know. I'm going to leave it at that for now and proceed. This is what I found in conclusion. 1, there's been more than one Ọbàtálá in Yoruba history. None of them were named Ọbàtálá at birth, and the same goes for other deities. So, that aside, The deified King Ọbàtálá of Ife that is honored in the current age was not androgynous and never displayed any signs of androgyny. The confusion may be because of the contraction of the female ancestor who bore the epithet before he was born. 3. Ọbàtálá has nothing to do with Jesus Christ, Our Lady of Mercy, or any other Catholic saint. Misinformation is one of the unfortunate byproducts of syncretism, and the latter is a serious issue in the spiritual community. I didn't know just how terrible syncretism was to the future, especially as the Yorùbá spiritual community and this Yorùbá spiritual community in the diaspora are fusing. There's a lot of ego, there's a lot of pride, there are lots of arguments, and people want to do things the way that our ancestors had to, when they had to hide the fact that they were honoring their own deities from Africa, when they had to blend it in with Christianity or Catholicism so that they would not be attacked. Some people still want to maintain that survival mode. Like, even if certain things that they are doing are not particularly right, they want to retain that mode of worship, of honoring. So that's a big problem for the future, especially as we learn from one another. 4. A lot of Odifa recitations and stories have been forgotten, altered, or are relatively unknown due to poor documentation. Students used to spend months learning or mastering one single Odu centuries ago because it was that bulky, there was that much information. There are certain animals that used to exist that have gone extinct that we now have to replace with the animals that we know in the current age. There are certain plants that we can't properly identify, so we use what appears to be a suitable substitute. Whether we can't properly identify them or they are no longer growing, maybe the tree was not replanted or so. There's just a lot of information that has been lost already, which leads me to my 5th point, which is, if group collaboration isn't done to properly document what is left in detail without sentiment and ego, accurate information will be very scarce in the future. It would even be more scarce than it currently is. It would be so hard to find the truth. It was a journey for sure, just having my eyes open to the fact that nobody can really claim to know everything. That is why it's not a religion. That's why it's a spiritual system. The central point of it all is learning from our ancestors, first of all, and building on the foundation that they've set. Every other thing is a complete waste of one's lifetime. The central point is this particular ancestor, who are they and what did they do and what can I learn from them, and how can I, going further, how can I communicate with them, or how can I align myself with them? And in a system where you even have deities like intentionally choosing people, if they've chosen me, then what do they want to teach me regarding this current incarnation? There's a lot to be said for sure. These are the words. I don't want to say anything more than that. I want to focus on the song, and perhaps in a live video sometime will a live video even be effective, because people would have to comment so many words. I suppose there's a way that people can join now with their audio or something. We'll figure it out. I'm very shy to do anything live, but we will figure it out. These are the words. Iyalawa Oricha O. Iyalawa Oricha O. Iyalawa àkàtìòkè. I'm not sure I'm singing that right. The Cuban version. Iyalawa Oricha O bàbá. Iyalawa àkàtìòkè. That's another way of starting. So different singers, different styles. Tani, bojú, elérí, Ọbàtálá Òrìṣà O. Àwa tilé Òrìṣà O. Iyalawa àkàtìòkè. Iyalawa Oricha O. Then there's the bàbá. So again, that's where the confusion comes in. which of the Ọbàtálas are we honoring? Is it the feminine energy that Ajayi Crowther recorded as the deity who is supposed to be the framer of the human body in the womb? One day we're going to talk about the introduction of the patriarchy and the changes and the altering of facts that it came with. For instance, take our sculptures. The way that our sculptures were molded back in the day. You didn't put earrings on those sculptures, or our Ori sculptures. You didn't put earrings, or you didn't draw hair. So when you see all those heads, the assumption is that they were all men and there was no woman among them. And there's this European way of interpreting art also. There's a lot. There's a lot that can be said. I don't want to get distracted. Let me just face the translation for now. Iyalawa Oricha O, Iyalawa àkàtìòkè. Tani bojú elérí ọba. Ọbàtálá Òrìṣà O, àwa tilé Òrìṣà O, Iyalawa àkàtìòkè. My first thought was, if it's not àkàtìòkè, then it's àkàtìòkè, because this is a word, so I suppose this is a sentence. They both make sense, and to some degree they sound alike. And with Lukumi from Olukumi, my friend, my person, is just like Arami. If you know what Ara is, then you know what Olukumi is. With Lukumi, the tones change, but I thought about it and I decided that àkàtìòkè is more likely than not what was being sung. There are two verbs here that we can assess: ka and ka, ka and ka. The ka is in àkàtìòkè. The ka is in àkàtìòkè. Ka is read. This word, there are so many English words that you can align with it. Read, count, recount, climb on or put on, set upon, impinge on, overwhelm. Ka. Ka, fold, wrap, bend, roll, crouch, encircle, reap, pluck, curl up, snuggle or cuddle. So ka okamomi, for instance, she snuggled against me, she cuddled with me. So it would be, if it's just one person cuddling themselves, it would be more like this than a escort than this. So for illustration purposes, this is more like it if it's just one person doing it. Snuggle, cuddle, catch, mokaemu, I caught you. Waka níbi tó ti ń jalè. They caught him or her where he or she was stealing. Let's start with ka. The ka that would apply here would either be climb or put on, or impinge on or overwhelm. Ó kà mí láyà. Ó kà mí láyà. If you say that, you're saying whatever that thing is has overwhelmed you, or it overwhelmed you. Ó kà mí láyà. Ó kà mí láyà is it's overwhelming me. Ó kà mí láyà is it overwhelmed me. Ó kà mí láyà. You may also know akaba, which is our word for ladder. Akaba. The thing that you climb on so that you can land. Let's say you're going to the roof. The thing that you climb on so that you can land where you're going. Ba is to land somewhere or to alight somewhere. Ẹyẹ bà lé òrùlé, or to perch somewhere. The bird perched on the roof. For instance, aka, the thing that you climb on so that you can perch or land somewhere or get somewhere. Akaba. So don't be surprised if you see ka in several other words. Àkàtìòkè. If you explore that word, the a there is like a noun maker. The, so to say. The ka is to climb or impinge on, both of which I think would work most in this context, although there are several other meanings that ka could have. It could be read, it could be count. Ti, ó jẹun tì, ó sùn tì, Ofoboti. It's one of our words for denoting inability, as if the person cannot do something or do something properly. It's like not. If you're looking for an English word, as far as translation goes, ti. Akati. Let's say you're talking about somebody counting money. Okawoti. The person was unable to count the money. Okay is really hill, but it's also mountain. When people want to emphasize mountain though, because they tend to be, if not much bigger, slightly bigger, they say okay la, okay apatakpiti. Okay, you have all these different adverbs and adjectives and words that you can use. People refer to both hill and mountain as okay. If they do want to emphasize the enormousness of the mountain, however, then they will use all these adjectives. Àkàtìòkè. So when you put that together, the hill that cannot be climbed or impinged on, the indomitable hill, the indomitable mountain. Because I'd never heard anybody call the masculine Ọbàtálá àkàtìòkè before, there are different epithets that you'd hear for Ọbàtálá, Babarúgbó, Alábàálàṣẹ, different, but I've just never heard àkàtìòkè, for the masculine Ọbàtálá of Ife, who was a king in Ife. So I sort of went searching and I contacted Yeye, this Yeye Grace as well. I reached out to her. Initially, I even thought this was a feminine deity, and also with all the pictures. So she explained to me that this is actually a masculine deity, which I feel bad for myself, because I always say that our men used to braid their hair back in the day. A decent number of our men used to braid their hair and preferred braiding their hair. Depending on the area, Kábíyèsí Ṣàngó would have had like servants that would have scraped their hair or scraped one part of their hair. One day we will talk about traditional men hairstyles in the Yoruba culture. There are different. You can shave all of it. You can shave off of it. You can shave the front and leave the back. I think that's the style that Seun Kuti does. I think is the only one faithful to that particular style. There's a significant number of our men that braided their hair, and I suppose that would include Òrìṣà O. With all the description, I sincerely thought that we were dealing with a feminine presence, but she said the particular ancestor that is being honored was a man, and there's sort of a macho thing about him too. Like, if you are a female and this particular Òrìṣà chooses you, it's very likely that the idea of submissiveness would be very appalling to you. You are, whether they are stereotypes or not, there are certain feminine attributes that would not apply to you at all. So don't even bother. Like, if you're going to get married to a man, he would have to be submissive to you. So that was like that was an entirely new thing for me. She said she couldn't say much because she wasn't from Ekiti, and she would often just go there to do celebrations with them. Like, she can't really say much. She can connect me with one of the priests or priestesses of this particular Òrìṣà Olójúdó, but she can't really say much. But she told me that much. So this is not Ọbàtálá, no. I guess it was the Efun that made me think, oh, is this a feminine Ọbàtálá that they're honoring? But no, it's Òrìṣà Olójúdó. As far as I know for now, from the people that I've asked, it's this deity that is most actively referred to as àkàtìòkè presently. Like, if you check around, whenever you hear Olójúdó, somebody will most likely say àkàtìòkè. So for now, I don't hear it often among the Ọbàtálá, but there is that. Àkàtìòkè, which is of course less likely, as I've noted, may also make sense, but my spirit just it's not àkàtìòkè. It's in fact àkàtìòkè. But àkàtìòkè would be, the A here would be we, ka, snuggle, cuddle, T, not T now, T against, okay, heal. So as if to say we take refuge with the ill, or we snuggle against the ill, or we find our strength in the ill, something like that. Like, that would still make sense, but that's not what it is in this particular context. As much as I'd like to think, my spirit said no, but that's another thing, just to give you an idea of another thing that it could probably be if it wasn't àkàtìòkè. And the main reason why I even thought that way was in Iluku, there are hills to where people actively honor Ọbàtálá. The Christians go there too, and Muslims, to pray. Most often Christians that go to what we refer to as white garment churches in Nigeria. I don't know how to explain. Will go there to pray as well. Most of the people, the founding fathers of those white garment churches, were in fact people who honored the Òrìṣà. But maybe because of the colonialism and the Christian activity at the time, thought they might as well just rebrand. So there are still certain things like going to the river and bathing in the river, and there are still one or two things that they've retained. So yeah, the idea of àkàtìòkè wasn't too awful a thought, but that's not what it is in this context. Iyalawa Oricha O. Iya is mother, is what you use to describe the mother or a maternal presence, but I've explained what it is in and of itself. La is to recover or cause to recover in this particular context, and I'll show you other meanings that it could have in a second. La wa, the wa here is us, Òrìṣà, specially selected or chosen one. Sha is to select. Òrìṣà, the specially selected one, the one that has been selected to fulfill a particular purpose. There's a difference between Irumale and Òrìṣà. I can be an Òrìṣà, you can be too. You've been specially selected to do something at a particular time, and once it's done and there's nothing left for you to do, of course it's time for you to go back home, you die. So there could be that. And there's Irumale, but we think of the Irumale as higher because most of the things that we're now building upon were established by them. They were the ones that really suffered, literally and metaphorically, for it. So that's the difference. Specially selected or chosen one, a deity, if you're looking for one English word that can fill in the gap. The O here is an exclamation. Ma pe o, tètè jẹun o, ma lọ o is like the way that we exclaim. It doesn't necessarily infer shouting, or it's just the way that we emphasize. It doesn't always connote a change in tone or a change in mood. It's just for emphasis. Jẹun o, eat, but with a little bit more emphasis. We use it a lot. The bàbá here is father, if you're looking for one word, but I've explained what bàbá is in and of itself. And I suppose the adding of bàbá here was not original. It's in newer, and by newer I mean renditions from like the 60s until now, where they've added the bàbá. Iyalawa Oricha O bàbá. There's an adjustment so that they can accommodate the bàbá, so that they can, I suppose, please everybody. But Iyalawa Oricha O seems to be like the oldest form. As far as recordings that I've heard, this seems to be the oldest form. But anyway, La, I said I was going to mention other meanings that La could have. La could be split or divide. It could be open. One La ikumi, they opened my stomach. La, oti la. We have to become rich. Or, La. Make rich. Make rich is another one. Save, ba is a synonym. If you're in the context of save, ba would be a synonym. Save. Cure or recover or cause to recover is another meaning. Escape is another meaning in a different context. If you say Ọ̀ṣun là mí lágàn, Ọ̀ṣun made me recover from barrenness, or Ọ̀ṣun cured me from barrenness, is what you would be saying if you say Ọ̀ṣun là mí lágàn. When you put these words together, mother, cause us to recover, specially chosen one, would be what the first line is. Iyalawa Oricha O, mother, cause us to recover, specially chosen one. And by emphasizing the specially chosen one, you're saying that it's because they can. is because they have the tools and expertise to do so. They know what it feels like and they know how to comfort one in that situation. You have to think 1800s Yoruba, the way they spoke Yoruba back in the day. It could either be that you're saying they are the one that you've chosen to help you recover in this case, or they are the one that Olodumare has designed to offer wisdom or comfort or recovery. Iyalawa àkàtìòkè, mother calls us to recover, indomitable ill. A hill that cannot be defeated, that cannot be impinged upon. Tani, bojú, elérí ọba. Whoever composed this song, or wherever this song came from originally, was most likely present day Oyo State area. That is saying area. Because they are the ones that say eri instead of ori. Sheri re buru. Now I'm remembering all the insults that I learned growing up. Ridiculous. They are the ones that say eri, ori, eri. They would be referring to the same thing. Elérí, olórí, they would be referring to the same thing. So there's a dialectical difference there. I'm grateful for all the dialects that I'm noticing because it's helping me determine where a song came from, or whoever composed the song, the part of what we now call Yoruba land they were most likely from. Tani, bojú, elérí ọba. Tani is who. Suggests that something is happening or something happens. Bojú wo is to look at. Bojú wo, to, you're adding highs here to emphasize the looking. So look at, seek, to look at, to seek. Elérí is the head. Elérí ọba, the head of the monarchs, the head monarch, if you will. Tani, bojú, elérí ọba. Who is seeking the face of the head of monarchs? Who is seeking the face of the head of monarchs? Tani, bojú, elérí ọba. As if they're asking a question now. Something interesting here is Oba. Either the song is a contraction of that of those two energies, of the masculine and the feminine, and in this particular line they are referring to Ọbàtálá of Ife that we know. Or these songs always seem so simple, right? Like, oh, I know what it means, ha ha ha, let me make a video saying what it is in English and let me conclude. But a person who is going to understand it to some degree must put themselves in the situation, what the situation was around that time, to what was going on. So I don't know if there were any like strong monarchical influences. I don't know who the kings and queens were, the Spanish kings and queens. The first organized system of slavery in Cuba was introduced by the Spanish Empire, which attacked and enslaved the island. See, sorry, I have to use Wikipedia because it's just going to take a longer time. Manage Wikipedia. I don't always trust Wikipedia, but you find useful information there. Which attacked and enslaved the island's Taino and Guanahatabey peoples on a grand scale. The remaining Taino intermixed with Europeans or African slaves, and no full-blooded Taino remained after the 1600s, though many Cubans do have Taino DNA and are descendants of those intermixed peoples. Following the Taino genocide, in which Spanish bred out or killed majority of the native population, the Spanish were in need of new slaves to uphold their sugarcane production. They thus brought more than this is where some of our ancestors come in. They then brought more than 1 million enslaved African people to Cuba. The African enslaved population grew to outnumber European Cubans, and a large population of Cubans today are descended from these enslaved peoples, perhaps as many as 65% of the population. Cuba became one of the largest sugarcane producers after the Asian Revolution. Okay, what I'm really looking for here, because this is not flowery history. I don't want to trigger anybody. My main concern is which Oba wo gangan, because Tani bojú wo olórí Oba, who is seeking the face of the head of kings. They are referring to this maternal figure, but also using descriptions like àkàtìòkè and olórí Oba or elérí Oba in that particular dialect, to be true to that dialect. There's something there. How active was this Hispanic monarchy in conjunction with the Catholic monarchy at this time? Or was there some other kind of monarchy in Cuba? If anybody can educate me, because that's another possibility. I may be thinking, oh, from my own Nigerian point of view and the little I know, the Ọbàtálá, at least to some degree, there are more there are no written records, but there are verbal recitations and songs that would indicate that the more recent Ọbàtálá king that we know was a man, monarch was a man. So I may be thinking, oh, maybe they are just juxtaposing that feminine Ọbàtálá that existed before, who was probably albino, by the person that I spoke with. And one of the reasons they may have been combined like that was because they had their own differences. Like, one was disabled, slightly disabled. The other was an albino. Like, they were different. And that is where all these myths came from about, like, children with disabilities and them and some kind of punishment. And it's on that premise that different stories were built and all of that. So I may be thinking in that area, like, oh, they are referring to the masculine Ọbàtálá, but that's not the only Oba at this time. There was the Spanish Oba system too, that was actively involved in the exploitation of humans. Even apart from the Spanish section, there's also those of us who who remained in Nigeria, but also got badly affected by the British Oba, by the British monarchy too. So there were Obas involved in one way or another. That's why I'm thinking it may be something else pertaining more to their own situation that they were referring to here. Tani bojú wo olórí Oba, who is seeking the face of, who is appealing to the one that is above all these monarchies that are involved. Who is seeking your face? It is I. Oh yes, this is another article that I found where they said something about, like, let me see, where they said this. It's hard to find anything particularly useful regarding that feminine energy. Let me see if I can find. See, so kind of same thing. When I googled Ogundameji Ọbàtálá, I found this. The woman or man relationship of Ọbàtálá depends on the Odu in question or the tradition employed by the writer. In one stanza of Ogundameji, it is stated that Ọbàtálá is a woman, and further, so there's a lot going on. I don't know where people are, and I'm yet to find somebody who can explain that, who can recite that particular Ogundameji. Okay, yeah, I found this as well because I wanted to learn more about feminine, like, what were people in Cuba doing? What are the people in Cuba, not what were, but they are still doing. What are they doing as far as feminine and masculine is concerned? And I found all these parts. Òrìṣà ńlá, female. Òrìṣà ayé, female. Ọba Lufon, male. Ọba Moro, male. Efunjobi, male. See, all these possibly different people. Òrìṣà with male. So again, just like that Baba was telling me, not Baba in Nigeria, there's been more than one Ọbàtálá in history. So we can't say for sure. We would only like discuss the ones that we know much about, if we can't back it up with. But the fact that we don't have people who can recite these stanzas or people who remember these stories doesn't mean that it didn't exist. Like, relying on humans for fact, human memory, or what was passed down from one person to the other for facts is not always effective. If I'm to write the history of the Yoruba people, if I'm to say something, it's very unlikely that I'm going to put myself at a disadvantage. So we really need to all come together, put ego aside, and really document. I have books on the Odrifa, but again, they don't go beyond the first 2 stanzas. At most, the first 3. As far as the deep Ifa, some people were left books by their ancestors that had stuff written in a Ajami too about all this history, but like, that is if they can even understand what was written. And some people are not very good with keeping what they were left, so it's either destroyed or torn, or maybe due to no fault of their own, just gone. So I would like to think that the Oba in question here, the Olori Oba, goes beyond that, oh, Ọbàtálá, King Ọbàtálá. There's something else here. Certain lines will seem simple, but some are deeper than we think. Ọbàtálá Òrìṣà O, Ọbàtálá, the specially chosen deity, the specially chosen one, with emphasis, Òrìṣà O. Àwa tilé Òrìṣà O. This is the answer to that question. Tani, bojú, olórí ọba, elérí ọba. Who's seeking their face? It is us, of the house of that deity, with the people of the house of the deity. Àwa ti ilé Òrìṣà. With the people, àwa ti of ilé, the house of, or the home of, or the abode of the Òrìṣà. With the people of the house of the Òrìṣà, with the people of the deity's house. Iyalawa àkàtìòkè. Mother, cause us to recover, indomitable heal. Cause us to be well mentally and even financially. Like I said, to become rich or to make rich is also la. Cause us to, both of which would make sense, both the mental and emotional recovery and the financial recovery, because there was a lot of impoverishment at the time as well. There was a lot of suffering. So I wouldn't rule the financial being well out either. There's just so much that can be said. Iyalawa Oricha O, Iyalawa àkàtìòkè. Tani, bojú, elérí ọba. Ọbàtálá Òrìṣà O. Àwa tilé Òrìṣà O, Iyalawa àkàtìòkè. Mother, cause us to recover, specially chosen one. Mother, cause us to recover, indomitable heal. Who is seeking the face of the head of monarchs? Ọbàtálá, the specially chosen one. It is we, the people of the deity's house. Mother, cause us to recover, indomitable heal. Heal would also work. Heal us, indomitable heal. The head of monarchs is kind of what I'd like to think if we're putting this particular energy over the monarchies or the powers that be that were actively benefiting from slavery at the time. Spanish, British. We, the people of the deity, who are aligned with the deity. Àwa tilé Ọbàtálá, if you're looking for another way of constructing that sentence. Àwa tilé Òrìṣà, àwa tilé Ọbàtálá. Mother, cause us to recover, indomitable heal. There are several ancestors that did several things that we benefit from today, or that discovered several things that are not, that we've completely forgotten, that even our own ancestors completely forgot. So we need proper documentation now that we have good means to document. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. And I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day and bye for now.